It's Scale School time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Sit down, grab a coffee, grab a banana because it's got a lot of potassium. It's going to make your brain work faster because we're going to be diving in to a hot topic. A topic that not a lot of people have really been exploring in the world of blockchain. And that is conditional transactions. Are they the future? What are they? How do they work? And why the fuck should you care? How we doing, everybody? Sawyer, what's going on, man?
Doing pretty good. I think we'll need to label this classroom explicit, kind of like they do the music albums. But I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I'm excited for this one. This is a feature that I've been clamoring for. It's a good word, clamoring. Pulled up a dictionary for that one. I've been clamoring for since spring of last year, I think. I've been pushing for this one, so very excited. I've been playing with it for the last couple weeks now, and you can build things that are just incredible. So I'm pretty excited to talk through that today and explore this. And of course, we're joined by my incredible colleague Manel, who I don't get to speak live with too often. So this is a treat, not just for you guys, but for me too.
How are you guys doing? I'm super excited to be here with these two gentlemen. I haven't been on a Scale School for a while, so yeah.
Yeah, you've been slacking, man.
Yeah, but like the good part is that like you just had so many good guests here. They built like a lot better things than I did, so they deserve the spot.
No. We've been working hard. So I think what would be great is getting a bit of an overview of. Let's start with the problem, Sawyer. How this idea came about and what actually does it do?
Yes, sir. So, Manel, thank you. Whoever did that, thank you. Sorry. StreamYard, terrible at muting stuff. I've seen it fall. Yeah, let's, no, you're good, man. I do it all the time. What are conditional transactions? Why do they matter? Where do they come from? How do we do it? What's the magic? What do we combine with them? And what can we do? That's the thing we actually care about most, right? Should we go in reverse order? Should we start there? What can we actually do with these things? Or should we start with one thing? What makes most sense for you, student?
Let's start with what it is.
Okay. So I should have whiteboarded this one. Be a good day to whiteboard. What is a conditional transaction? First of all, a conditional transaction is essentially a transaction that triggers when some condition is met. Very simple. So for example, if the coin flips heads, trigger. If the price of X hits Y, trigger. If your position becomes, if your loan to value ratio, your LTV in the lending protocol becomes too low, liquidate. If Bitcoin hits 10,000, buy every single one in the world, right? If Michigan wins the Final Four or wins the March Madness, I don't know, do something, right? Like the whole point is it doesn't really matter. That's what's so amazing about CTX is it's actually what I call a blockchain primitive. There's very few things that are bespoke to the EVM, right? Like most EVMs kind of have the same set of features, and then you kind of have your split between your L1, your L2, sometimes your L3s. And then in some cases, right, you've got things like, some L2s have like smaller blocks, like mini blocks. Some L2s have faster withdrawals. Some L2s have, native RNG. We have that as well, et cetera, et cetera. But most EVMs are pretty vanilla. Where blockchains have really kind of chosen to innovate is on the economic side, right? Tokens and the staking and you bridge and we'll use the yield and do different things. Most people have not really innovated within the EVM because they've been scared to break compatibility. So why are CTXs capable of being used, and how do they not break compatibility, and how does it work? This is just going to be a little bit of a ramble. Raise your hand or interrupt me with questions. I'm just kidding about the raise your hand. This is not actual school. So when we want to actually use a conditional transaction, it is 100% done in Solidity and basically right in the blockchain, which is incredible. It doesn't require a third-party network. It doesn't require to go like off and do crazy new like Solidity things. An example would be Zama, which I actually am a big fan of their technology. However, they require you to replace like all the variables with custom variables, and then there's all these like other changes you got to do. It's very cool stuff, but very technically complicated. What's really nice about conditional transactions is they work directly within our core blockchain. They're just Solidity. All we did was add some what we call precompiles, which are essentially smart contracts that live at a very specific address on chain, and they cannot be changed. So what do we actually do to make CTXs work? And then best use cases. To make a CTX work, we actually have to take a step down into how Scale works. So for the first time in a long time, I'll actually get to talk about how Scale works. I feel like we often don't even have time for that. This show is just so run and gun. If you're not familiar with Scale, Scale's a blockchain network. And what makes Scale really unique is that it's not just one blockchain, it's many blockchains. We can deploy these instances of Scale Manager, which are, think of it like the brain of Scale, right? So look at Falcor's head. Imagine if like you just took one of those and threw it on a blockchain. It's kind of like what Scale Manager is, just like a Falcor head. Yeah, it's okay to laugh. You know, we're here to have fun. It's kind of weird having two guests from Scale. You guys, you guys know me too well, so like I have to think harder on how to, have some fun here. Anyways, so we've got Scale Manager. It's the brain. The brain does a number of things. One, it allows scale chains to be created. Two, it allows validators to register. And three, it handles scale chain orchestration. So when those scale chains are created, validators are chosen from this pool, and they then run the scale chains. So for example, let's say myself, Manel, and Falcor are each a scale chain. Okay, actually, no. We are one scale chain. Pretend there's a fourth person up here with us. We'll name that person Bob. Bob is up here with us. Each of us are validators in the Scale network. We work together to secure the network. How do we do that? The answer is when we join, we do absolutely nothing. We just sit there. It's one of the coolest parts of Scale. We're contributing to security just by being there. Now, someone comes in. Let's say, I don't know, pick some big company just for fun. Pepsi.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought of Pepsi. There's this whole thing where I live. Everyone always asks like Pepsi versus Coke because they all like one or the other, and it's always Pepsi here. I don't know why. Not a Pepsi person, but anyways, Pepsi.
You have Pepsi Max?
I'm not a Pepsi person.
Oh, dude, have Pepsi Max. It's different. Trust.
Just different. Okay, who are you gonna say?
I don't remember now.
Okay.
You sent me in a weird place.
How about let's go to Starbucks? I'm drinking coffee. Let's go to Starbucks. Starbucks needs a scale chain. They want to handle all of their payments on the scale chain. Very valid reason, right? They want to do all their settlement. They want confidential transfers, all that good stuff. So they say, we're going to buy a scale chain. Maybe we're going to buy 100 of them. Sure, we can connect them all. So what happens is Falcor, myself, Manel, and Bob, who is our imaginary friend up here, we're all running nodes in the Scale network. We get randomly selected to run Starbucks' chain. Okay. When this chain is now created, we each are part of what is called a distributed key generation process. So it's a very magical thing that happens on top of the beacon chain, so on Ethereum or on Base. And what happens is each of us generate a private key share locally in our trusted execution environment that when the majority come together allows us to derive a shared public address /key. Technically key, not address. What that key does is it allows us to have shared encryption and decryption. And that's actually how the SKALE network does consensus. So when, Alice says, hey, I need to send $5,000 to Jerry, what happens is that transaction gets signed with the user's private key. It gets sent to the chain, and then the validators essentially all have to sign the transaction and sign the block to make it verified. And then once they glue all those signatures together, we now have a valid block. Then that can be merged onto the chain. That all uses these private key shares in this what we call BLS threshold encryption and threshold schemes, which again is just super mathematical. We're not going to go that deep.
Your mic's turned off.
How about now?
Yep, you're back.
All right. I was just saying, I'm happy to go into that if Mr. Falcor wants, but I think it might be a bit too technical for today's lesson. Maybe we'll do something separate on it. For today, what's important is you understand this idea that I have a secret, Falcor has a secret, Manel has a secret, and Bob has a secret. Each of our secrets has to be used locally to sign essentially like a proof or like a okay, create a signature of some information that when the majority, aka 3 or more in our our 4-person chain here, come together, it is then valid. Okay. And so now we can take this exact thing we use for consensus and we can actually use it for threshold encryption and decryption. So the threshold concept is basically just that majority piece. It's that there's some end number that has to be met to be utilized. And in this case, like I said, we now have some information that can be encrypted and stored on chain. And then when a condition is met, we can actually have that decrypted by our validators on the fly during the transaction. And they can now use that information to turn around and pass those values back in Solidity to then be used to execute some functionality. That was really technical, even though I tried to make it not technical. Before I go into more, Falcor or Manel, any questions, any thoughts, any like, hey, can we clean this up? This didn't make sense.
No, it makes sense.
Okay, repeat it back to me.
You know what I mean, that kind of stuff.
Give me like a high level. If you can give me a high level, then we're good. If you can't, it just means I didn't do a good enough job explaining it. 30 seconds, that's all I need.
Yeah. Thing works. Thing cool. Use thing.
No. Thing uses multiple keys to encrypt, decrypt. Thing allows incredible things that cannot now yet be done on EVM to now be done on EVM. SKALE.
Your mic's gone again.
Yeah, but basically SKALE is the only one able to do that due to the way it was built in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
By our incredible engineers. Still not there. Yep. Nope.
All right.
No.
Yep. I'm mic up,
Yep.
All right. I switched back to headphones, so hopefully we won't have constant issues. Cool. All right. So basically our TLDR recap, if you just joined, is SKALE's a blockchain network. We're built for the world of agents, and part of agents doing really amazing things is they need new things, right? The basic EVM is just too vanilla for them. Same thing with humans and DeFi and all these other incredible areas. There's just so much you could build if you have the right capabilities. And that capability in layman's terms is the ability to say, when something happens, do some encrypted action. That's pretty much it, right? It's an encrypted trigger in its most basic form. And so that opens us up to do many, many things, including we also have another feature, which we will not do a separate episode on, so I'll just bring it up here. There's another feature called re-encryption, which works almost the exact same way. The only difference is it allows the validators to re-encrypt things during execution. So essentially, while they're actually processing, they can take information and they can re-encrypt it with either their own key for the database or for a viewer key for a third party. And the reason that's so critical is because it actually makes a CTX about 100 times more powerful.
For example, a CTX means I can have information that I generate here, like with my own 2 hands in my computer. I can generate some information. I can encrypt it, store it on chain, and during the execution, it will get decrypted and used. The problem, I can't keep it on chain privately. I can't extend it over the course of time. I can't continuously reuse it. So re-encryption allows us to do that. And I'll go into a deeper example in a few minutes, but Manel, how are we looking?
Yeah, what do you mean in terms of looking?
Does it work? Does it not work? We're a bit iffy.
Yeah, not great
That's
news.
fair. That's fair. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to try something new here. Well, not new. We've actually done this before. We've done this before, and it didn't work that well, but we're going to try again. Let's see here. Front end. Run dev. All right. One moment, people. Sorry, bear with me. Basically, there's this really cool thing. There's this game that I'm really bad at. It's called Texas Hold'em Poker. I'm really bad at it. I don't know why, but I'm really bad at it. I think I just make terrible decisions. But hold on, Manel, you gotta mute yourself again. Your keyboard's way louder than mine.
Why? This never happened. I think it's, yeah. On
I'm
Zoom,
not sure, actually.
Probably, I think it's the platform, because Zoom just muted.
No, it's all good. But essentially, I'm really bad at this game. But I started thinking about, what are all these things that could work? What are these things that blockchain would be so great for, but you can't actually do because you lack this element of privacy, right? So it's like, could you build poker on chain, on any chain? Sure. But it's not actually on chain because you're either doing encryption, decryption off chain, and you're basically just using the chain to like share information, which is fine, but kind of dumb, I feel like. Or you're using like really complex ZK circuits. We had a team do that on SKALE a couple of years back. It was really cool, but it was really complex. It was kind of slow. And so what I did was I created AI Poker Night, and I have no idea if this works, but I'm going to try. Can I share my screen, Talkor?
Yeah, of course.
All right. It claimed it worked when the bot was tinkering with it and doing some smoke tests for me. But I have absolutely no idea if this actually works. So we're going to find out here.
We shall see.
All right.
It's not bad UI.
Thank you. Codex.
Shout out Codex.
All right. Scale-based Sepolia. Add. Let's go, Rabby. Oh, that's a... What is... That is just a... That's wrong. Base Sepolia. That just looks wrong to me. I don't think that's right. Base Sepolia. It's this one right here. No. After all these years,
it wouldn't be a Scale
still
school
gets the better of me.
without a technical difficulty.
Yeah. I don't know why Rabby's not allowing me to load. This is kind of really annoying. Oh. Wait, why is this staging V3? What is going on right now? I think I'm on. Guys, what is happening? Base.
Careful. Remember, you are. I'm going to put your screen share down while you fix that. Well, while you're fixing that, Manel, I guess like one of the interesting things as well, obviously we do have all of these opportunities with, on-chain gaming and things like that. But talk to me about it from a stablecoin point of view, right? Like, what does conditional transactions mean for people that are looking at building stablecoin platforms?
To be honest, I would say we're just scratching the surface, but the reality is that the conditional transactions just provides a privacy that nothing else provides on blockchain, right? Because it all started in the blockchain space where, okay, we want to have something public, like a blockchain where everyone can see everything, right? And then that at some certain level, it's very helpful for certain things, but for other things, for balances, for like if I want to have a wallet, perhaps I don't want to show how much I have there in terms of USDC, right? Some things might be public, but some others are private. And with this encryption and done in a decentralized way, right? So it's not the SKALE team that has this control on how things get encrypted or not. It's truly decentralized based on the nodes. And I think it's a new era, to be honest. And I think CTX is just another step, because before with Byte V1, what we had was like, sure, we can encrypt. Basically, it was very helpful probably for MEV protection, right? Because once the transaction would be placed on the mempool, would be encrypted, right? And it would prevent MEV attacks. But right now, what happened is like, sure, we can encrypt, but it doesn't just get decrypted once it gets on chain. It gets decrypted once something triggers on a contract. And I think, yeah, that can be
a great one for this, I would say, is so obviously in the world of crypto and trading and tokens and things like that, most things have an instant reaction or within 3 to 5 seconds of the price of Bitcoin, right? One of the things that I have always wanted to do is, if Bitcoin does X, do Y, right? And for some reason on exchanges, you can't do like limit orders for the price of another token, right? So let's say Bitcoin pumps 5%. I know history dictates that Ethereum is going to pump 4% with that within this amount of time, right? So I want to do a buy order of Ethereum off of the price of Bitcoin. Now, will conditional transactions allow me to do this?
Is it for me, for Sawyer? But yeah.
I can take that one. Sorry. The answer is yes. So this is actually something that I actually was building like a month and a half ago. Was this capability to do kind of cross market limit orders? You can go actually as far as going cross application orders. That's what's so amazing about this functionality. So, for example, no politics coming in here. When the world leaders do things, markets move. It's always been that way. Yep. And so there's a lot of people who do trading based on what world leaders say, what they tweet, what they talk about.
I built that sentiment analysis on Trump's Truth Social.
Right. And so you could do something similar here where it's a, during, if the poly market or this or that hits X, right, you want to go trade Y, and you could have it buy 10 tokens at the same time, right? Like if this comes out, do this or whatever. So that's kind of the beauty. The answer is yes to your question. That's the beauty of why the conditional transaction is so powerful, is because it's raw solidity. And so anything you can build in solidity, you can make happen across, you could have 5 applications working together, right? Like, hey, I have a lending protocol. I build my lending protocol where when people are in range of liquidation, I start to auto liquidate their positions. And I actually take that auto liquidation and I auto swap into my own token and buy back my collateral, right? And then, like you can.
I guess what it also does is allows for a lot easier arbitrage on the likes of a poly market, right? As that's all, on chain, No.
Well, yes and no. So poly market's an interesting there's two things that are, one thing about conditional transactions that's really unique, and one thing about Polymarket that's really unique. Polymarket, there's only 3-ish actions, 4, that occur on chain. User deposits, settlement, so they do all the trading off chain, they do all the matching off chain, and they just settle it on chain. But there's no actual trading that occurs on chain. It all happens off chain. And then market making, minting shares and burning shares. And so basically on Polymarket, if the market is trading at like yes is 97 cents and no is 2 cents for some reason, which happens, it's basically trading under $1, you can buy both shares for 99 cents and you can burn them for $1. You can also do the other way. If the market is for some reason trading over $1, so it's trading at like 55 cents on one side and 50 cents on the other, you can mint for $1 and sell both for $1.05. So those are like the 4 actions that Polymarket primarily has on chain. So arbitrage could be a little iffy, depends on if you're more so looking at the market making side. But now where CTXs get really interesting is CTXs are scale specific, right? And that's why it's a pro and a con for builders. The con is if you're already working on a different chain, you have to go to Scale to access this feature. The positive for Scale is that you can now build things that you can't build anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so if you're building a DeFi protocol, you're building lending, AMM, perp, any of these things, and you believe you have some edge that's going to let you break in and be a top DeFi protocol, the reality is you probably don't, because it's pretty much the same 4 things that have been popular for the last 5 years, right? We've seen perps become big and prediction markets become big. But outside of that, it's pretty much AMMs, lending protocols, perps, and prediction markets. There's really not that much else. And so the problem is everyone just keeps taking the same code, forking it, and making a couple tweaks and saying they're good enough. CTXs allow you to actually take something and do what we've been talking about, right? I can take an AMM and I can build limit orders on top. I can take a lending protocol and I can add automatic liquidation. I can take a prediction market and I can now have private share ownership, which is really cool, right? Like, so instead of everyone seeing, hey, this person owns that much, that all stays private on chain. All sorts of options, but those do happen natively on Scale. And so you would need basically, it's a huge opportunity for someone who says, hey, I could actually build my own prediction market, which you can, all on chain and build it on Scale. Because the two biggest prediction markets are actually primarily off chain.
And they need to be, right? As of right now.
I don't think they need to be. I think it's more of a we see the majority of newer protocols, or at least a lot of financial ones. It seems like trending toward just do deposits on chain and then do logic off chain.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people like Polymarket, it's potentially partially regulatory. If everything was on chain, there might be a little bit more. There might be a little bit more for them to have to figure out and work through, but I mean, they've got licenses kind of everywhere now, so I'm not 100% sure. It's more just an assumption, but it's also a risk. I mean, we just saw, not that it couldn't happen to a normal non-on-chain company, but I mean, we just saw the Drift protocol hack for what, $300 million, right?
That's actually a great point. Sorry for cutting you off. My brain just went, oh. So does this not allow fail-safes to be put in?
Yes and no. It absolutely can, but I mean, the fail-safes could be put in elsewhere regardless. It's more of a, the problem is smart contracts are really complex, right? And so you kind of have two sides of everything here, which is you can do incredible things in Solidity. It's one of the most flexible languages, just from like you can chain so many automations together, especially when you're using a blockchain that removes many of the limitations, right? Our gas limit is 268 million compared to most chains like 30 to 55. So, right, that's 5, 10 70x in some cases the throughput and capacity you can do in a single transaction. We also have things like, right, native RNG that's provable. We have built-in oracles and file storage and all these things. And so Solidity is very dynamic. You can do a lot. The problem is it's also very risky, right? Because blockchains by design, you can't roll back. If you're building like an off-chain trading platform and there's a bug and you make a mistake, well, the money's not actually in your server or in your database. The money's in your bank account, right? And if something did happen where money's pulling out of your bank account maliciously, you're going to the bank and you're saying, hey, this was fraud, right? You're going to the FBI and like these other entities and you're clawing that back to the best of your ability. When you're on a blockchain, it's not really an option, especially with how fast they move, right? People that are doing these malicious hacks, not only are they taking this money, they're taking this money and they're immediately pushing it out through these other projects and platforms that are mixers and these bridges where they can't stop anything, right? And again, this is your decentralization trade-off. There's people out there, myself included, who believe like, yeah, you have a right to use these things if you want, as long as you're not doing illegal things. However, they're often used for illegal things, right? And so now this money gets stolen and it's immediately washed through all these different platforms. And now it's so hard to trace. And now it's like kind of poof. And so these are the sides to the Solidity coin, which is you could build incredible things, but the risk is so high. There's this guy, I always forget his name, which is kind of really embarrassing for me because he's an incredible dev. He's the guy behind ZAMM. His name, he goes by like Zoros or something. I think it's Zoros. ZAMM. I think it's Zoros. He did the Way name. He did ZAMM. He goes by Ross. Ross.way. Zoros. He's built a bunch of stuff. He actually just created like last week. Guy's an incredible Solidity engineer. He created this new multi-sig that has a really simple but clever capability. Multi-sigs by design, when you use it, if you have some threshold of people sign, it goes through. But the problem is many protocols now use time locks as well. And time locks have a trade-off. The trade-off is if the multi-sig gets compromised, they can't actually update the platform within some period of time because there's time lock, right? So maybe it's like 24, 48 hours for it to be caught. The problem is if you need to pause the protocol or you need to change something, you also are stuck. And so he created a really clever multi-sig that's as simple as if all the people on the multi-sig sign, you can execute immediately.
Yeah.
It's like so simple, but like we don't have these things today, right? Gnosis Safe is one of the most incredible feats of technology in the blockchain era, but it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Right? And every change has to go through so much scrutiny. And so it's actually one of the reasons also why I really like CTXs is because you can wrap protocols. You don't actually need to change the underlying protocol, right? You could do something where, for example, if you're using an AMM and you want to do limit orders, you can make it where as long as you're executing the swaps through this new contract, you don't need to change the underlying protocol. You can, but you don't have to. And so it just opens up a new opportunity where you can get this new functionality, but you don't have to necessarily change code that is, SushiSwap and Uniswap are about as, I'll knock on wood here, they're about as bulletproof as you can get in crypto, right? The core ones.
I think that's a good one to deep dive. Like, if you how would you wrap around a SushiSwap limit order, for instance, like with Scale? Like, would you encrypt, right, and then the
yeah. So there's two things here. So there's essentially two things. One, the way smart contracts work is there's basically like four types of transactions that can exist in a smart contract. There's public, there's external, there's private, and there's internal. Very embarrassing. I'm blanking on the difference between private and internal. I think internal gets inlines in the contract. and it only works in the one directly. Private is callable from a parent contract that wraps it. However, it is not publicly accessible. So like, for example, if I have contract A that wants to basically encapsulate contract B, it can call a private function. It cannot call an internal function.
I think internal is just internal to the contract. I think that's it.
And then external is very unique. External is not callable by other functions in the contract. So if you have an external function, it's the lightest, but it's only callable by other contracts or people. And then public is actually like external and private at the same time. It can be called internally and externally. So those are the 4 types. So there's a function on, the Uniswap, SushiSwap contracts. It's called like swap exact token for token or something. Swap exact tokens, whatever. That is what is actually used for the router. So SushiSwap and Uniswap, for those that don't know, Uniswap's the OG, and then SushiSwap is the fork that I think a lot of the derivatives are based off of. All the testing I've done is usually based off SushiSwap. But essentially, there's 3 layers, 2 layers. There's the base, there's 3 layers. There's the factory, which is where you create LP pools. There's the pair, which is actually the LP token. So in Uniswap v2, these were ERC20 LP tokens. In v3 and v4, they're now actually NFTs. And then there's the router, which is like, they call it a peripheral contract. And the router is essentially what you use majority of the time. You actually interact with the router the most. That's where you do the swapping. So the router has, I believe they're public functions, if I'm not mistaken. They're either public or external. And these are what you call. And so what's really cool is you can chain that through other protocols, right? So for example, we could create a limit order book where it's like, hey, I want to, when the price of this hits that, trigger. And what's really cool is you're probably never going to want to use a localized price feed. Like you never really want to use the AMM price pool directly for doing those types of things, because there's a very good chance you'll get crushed on the price. It's too easy to manipulate if there's not enough liquidity. And so most likely you use an oracle. And essentially what happens is, let's just say there's an oracle, it's pushing the price of Bitcoin. And when the price of Bitcoin hits some triggers, people now have CTXs executing and they're now making swaps on the AMM. Those swaps are now essentially triggered via that external call to the SushiSwap contract. So it's essentially a layer above, requires no changes to SushiSwap itself. And that's because the way the CTX works, if we take one step a little bit deeper, it actually uses a very similar design as Chainlink's VRF and Oracle. And that's what we call a callback system. Callbacks are great and annoying at the same time. The reason they're great is because it's a very easy to understand thing. I have a transaction that executes, but the actual action I want does not execute right away. It executes on the callback. When does the callback occur? The answer on SKALE is it's queued up, and it should execute in most cases at the start of the next block. There's no risk of you getting like front run by other people. You actually always go first, which is really nice. And so essentially that callback should happen at the start of the next block. And thankfully, this is a little fun fact for you guys. The way SKALE works, when you're using CTXs, the chain feels about 10 times faster. And that's because the blocks are queued up automatically and executed for you. And so it's like when you submit a CTX, it feels like it executes pretty much immediately, which I think in most cases it is about 10 times faster right now, which is kind of cool. But that is the flow, right? So I say, hey, when Bitcoin hits, what's Bitcoin at right now? Anyone know off the top of their head?
63, I think.
What?
60. I've got 68.3 on my side.
68? Okay.
68.3 in USD. Maybe he's in euro?
No,
No, he's 68. I don't know.
All right, so
why
Bitcoin's at 68.3. I basically place, this is what's cool too, I can place multiple, right? So I can just totally hedge this thing. So I'm going to say, hey, if Bitcoin hits 68, right, drops $305 from my local CoinGecko price feed, I want to buy a bunch of some asset, right? Maybe I don't even want to buy Bitcoin. I'm just like, hey, if Bitcoin hits 68, I actually want to buy a bunch of Ethereum. right? Cool, sure, why not? At the same time, maybe I also own a bunch of Bitcoin, and I say, well, if Bitcoin hits 70,000, I actually want to sell out and stable out, right? I want to go into USDC. I can set both of those as CTXs. I could set multiple, right? I could have like a ladder. Bitcoin hits 70, sell. Bitcoin hits 75, buy more. Bitcoin hits 80, sell. Bitcoin hits 85, buy more. So you could structure all these things through a really basic primitive. I know that was probably like a 9-minute, too long ramble, but you can I think you can probably tell the excitement. This is something that just doesn't exist. And a reminder, the reason this is so important is because all of that is encrypted. The only thing that is not encrypted is the condition. So Falcor and Manel can see, hey, when Bitcoin hits X, someone's going to execute and do something. The thing is, they have no idea what I'm executing. It could be a limit order. It could be a trade on a perp. It could be a lending position. It could be an LP unwind. It could be anything. And so that's what's really exciting is it does remain encrypted until post-execution. And you can optionally re-encrypt if you want to maintain positions. So you can basically create like a chained ladder where you just recreate positions constantly for yourself.
One question. And do you think like no one cares about if I do a small trade, right? But you think Whale cares about this in the sense that it's something that they would want to use to basically encrypt their 1 million that will be triggered once Bitcoin hits whatever?
I think that this requires the right protocols to be built, but I think that there's such a big opportunity for institutions, like prop trading firms, all those types of people to make such incredible use of this. Because right now, they're all playing by the same rules around trying to get as close as possible to the execution engine. So Falcor will remember this because he was on with me last week. I think it was last week when we were talking to Justin Bevis.
Mm-hmm.
Was that last week from UV and Codex?
So yeah.
And
No. Last week was Moon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And he said something really great about financial, like AI and financial. He basically said the 10-20% of trading is the execution. And those are people that essentially like they're sitting right on top of the market. They are the market, right? That's like your NASDAQs, your right, like people like Jane Street trying to get closer, stuff like that. Sitting out like these people are the market. Hyperliquid is the market. The closer you get to the market, the faster your execution. And everyone's looking for alpha on how to cut out a nanosecond, right? Because every time you can cut out a little bit of that latency and that lag, you have the opportunity to make more money. The big opportunity is what you can do on top in the strategy around how you're placing trades. But what's really cool is if you think about making a trade on a Hyperliquid versus a Base versus Ethereum versus Scale, they all have their own pros and cons, right? For example, Base is running a singular node, probably somewhere in the US would be my guess. And so it's kind of like the Arbitrum thing. For those of you that don't know, when Arbitrum got really hot, obviously they're not so hot anymore, but when they were really hot, they were like the DeFi chain. There was all these people who were basically like freaking like competing to get as close as possible to the sequencer because they just run a basic first in, first out sequencer. So essentially, the closer you are to the sequencer, the faster you get your trades placed and the better margin you can make. There's people making like a significant amount of money just literally doing basic trading algorithms, getting closer and closer. Chains like Scale, chains like Ethereum, they're more decentralized, there's more nodes. And so being closer to the node does not always guarantee that you're going to have faster execution. There is ways to potentially access private order flow. We don't have any validators from my knowledge doing that on Scale. It's even harder with our new Byte protocol because a lot of the stuff is encrypted. And so the validators can't see it anyways. But on Ethereum, we do know there is MEV, right? That's literally part of their block creation process. And so depending on who you submit your transaction to, you could be getting slotted to the front of that block much quicker. That's also what your priority tip is for. Lastly, you've got Hyperliquid, which actually is more Base-esque or Arbitrum-esque in the sense of they've got 16 validator nodes, but they're all running co-located, right? And so that means if you go near the co-location, you technically should be getting better alpha on the execution, better speed. So the reason I give that background is because how do you get that alpha trading on scale? The answer is by building CTXs, because CTXs are guaranteed to run at the top of the block. And so you actually want your trading algorithms to run through CTXs because you can guarantee that on the next block, you're going to run at the top. And so if you're trying to chain things and automate things, this is essentially like your best form of automation. An example is there's this thing called Open Zeppelin Defender. And I think they opened that up to broader automation. There was for a while Gelato. They pivoted a bunch of times, but like Gelato had this. Chainlink's got some automation. This is essentially automation at its like lowest level, right? This is Falcor says, hey, I love Pokemon cards. And if one of these pops up on the NFT marketplace in this price range, like snap it up immediately. Do not wait for anyone. And for the first time, he doesn't have to rely on some off-chain execution. He can go to the blockchain and say, make sure this happens, and the blockchain guarantees it. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I think as well, it kind of brings more trust into it, right? As
yes,
there are people out there who believe that, whether it's true or not, but centralized exchanges, moving their stop limit order, their buy order, things like that, right? And they think that something potentially weird is going on. While with this, it's baked into the code itself. It's a if X does Y, do B. So you can be a little bit more trusting in the applications that you use.
Yeah, I mean, I think right at the end of the day, blockchains are trustless environments, and everyone wants trust in a trustless environment. But at the end of the day, that is the proof point of how this stuff is going to be successful. There's a reason we still go to banks. There's a reason we use brokerage firms. There's a reason we use exchanges. It's not because we necessarily like them, but it's because there's some level of trust, right? Everyone's got a problem with everything. That's just the world we live in today. But what's really cool about this is you're very much so right. It allows you to essentially say, if the chain is running okay, which obviously like blockchains go down, things happen. But if the chain's running okay, I'm guaranteed to execute at basically whatever order the CTXs is submitted in, I'm guaranteed to run in that order. So if there's 10 people who want to trigger when Bitcoin hits 70,000, I should be, whatever order I submitted my condition in, I should be in that order. Right. And that's just like, I do like that. I know I've been talking way too much today. I'm just like, I'm so excited for this feature. But we actually got an awesome question from someone on YouTube. I don't know if they're still listening. They asked like 30 minutes ago. Sorry, I didn't see it. They said, is this going to be ISO compliant? Or they said ISO compliant, but I think they meant ISO compliant. And the answer is, theoretically, it can be. There's all sorts of standards out there. And one of the things we've actually been talking about is now that there's this ability to do re-encryption, you can store information directly alongside your transaction. So a very simple example would be, I send Falcor $1,000. I'm a business, he's a business. I'm in the US, he's in the EU, right? We're on opposite sides of the pond, very simply. And two businesses moving $1,000, we have things we have to comply with. There's like FinCEN, there's maybe CFTC stuff, there's some international something. I'm sure on your side, there's like a dozen agencies that probably need to be notified about something or another. Basically, there's all the stuff you have to do. One of the simplest ones is travel rule. Travel rule is actually very simple to comply with. Essentially, I know who Falcor is. He knows who I am. We have each other's business details. We need to share that with each other. And then we go to file information. There's stuff we have to push up there. And so it's important that if I pay Falcor $1,000, when we go back in 12 months, that information is still there. And so one of the things we can do is we can actually push that information directly on chain encrypted, where only the two of us could decrypt it. So it does allow us to start to explore actually being far more compliant than your average stablecoin transfer or trading execution. Same thing with P&L. Same thing with, heck, like a tax company could potentially explore doing automated taxes on chain now, right? Like put in your tax information and it calculates on the fly. So many things you can do just because you can store that private information and ensure only certain people have access to it. So very good question. I have slightly sad news.
You're not getting it to work, are you?
It's getting stuck joining the table, and I don't know why. Yeah, it's been a bit weird today. I'm not sure why, which is pretty sad. We're gonna try to demo for you guys, but no plan survives the enemy.
Was it on the same place as mine that failed? Before.
Yeah, it's just, like, can you still see my screen or no?
Nope. Yeah, we can show this thing, but
yeah, it's basically just like it's just waiting for I don't know. It's being dumb. Like the transaction is, I don't know. I think the RPCs are messed up. Blame the agents, honestly.
Everything can be done by AI.
Everything can be done by AI.
Everything can be done by AI.
Yeah.
If they have the right
Does it work?
information, that's the thing. Yeah.
Not yet, but it will. I mean, I wrote a lot of this code. Just, then I had AI do some things to make UI pretty, and it broke it. So blame OpenAI. It's not my fault. Anyway, any other questions from you guys? I mean, I know this stuff is really new. We didn't really go. We went through a lot of use cases. We didn't really talk about any gambling ones. Maybe we'll hit on that briefly if we've got a second. But any other questions from you guys, just in regards to CTXs? What's exciting? What's confusing? What do we still not know?
No, I think it all makes sense. It's exciting times.
I have one question. I think it's a good one for everyone to fully understand how it works, right? So what you said, like, so it's submitted, and then there's a callback that then decrypts on the next block the whatever is to be decrypted, right? And who triggers that transaction, right? So if it's not the I have a wallet, I do the initial encryption, but then how does it get decrypted? Who does the decryption
Yeah, great question. So this is actually a really interesting one. So if we go back to that kind of overview of how SKALE works, we've got validators, and these validators work together to run the chain, right? Decrypt, encrypt, do consensus, things like that. And so what happens is, for every single CTX, there is what we call an ephemeral wallet that is created. Ephemeral means like one-off. It's used exactly one time. And so this is kind of like, it's very confusing, but it's kind of a stroke of genius from the SKALE engineering team. What happens is the validators essentially create a wallet. They create a private key that only they together can execute on. And that is known when the CTX is queued up, right? So essentially when I submit the CTX, it's always going to execute ideally in n+1 block. Technically, it could be later. But what happens is the validators create this ephemeral wallet. Gas or compute credits are moved into this ephemeral wallet. And that wallet is then used to trigger the transaction one time. And that's how that's how the security works, which is also really nice, because otherwise, how do you secure the callback? This makes it really easy. You only allow the ephemeral wallet to temporarily have access to OnDecrypt. And then essentially the validators are the ones one of the validators essentially triggers, when they come to agreement, that gets triggered automatically. And then right now, the compute credits or the gas is left in the ephemeral wallet, but we're talking about a potential optimization to send it back or potentially to burn it. So we're exploring some things there, but good question. That's part of the automation is there's essentially like layman's terms, it's a burner wallet. right? It's a one-off. It has no affiliation or owned by anyone. It's essentially owned by the validators for a very short lifespan to be the one to execute that transaction.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think it's like overall, like of course the technology is something like difficult, but high level it's something simple, right? Makes sense. I think on a, I don't know if you have time, but I think on some next like CTX overview, we can go through the code and clearly explain like, okay, here you do that, then do the decryption, callback, whatever.
Definitely. Falco, are we wrapping up, or do we have 2 more minutes?
Let's wrap it up, my guys.
Okay. We'll do a separate video for that. And we'll get some demos out ASAP for you guys.
Yep.
So if you're watching and you say, hey, Manel Sawyer, why didn't you show anything? Sorry, we're only human.
Secret Santa coming right at you. To be honest, you can build like, I was thinking like you can build everything, right? There's so many different simple things that you use it in the internet, and okay, you need a small database, you have it, right? Scale. And with CTX, you can just build a ton of different things. Like I was building, and I'm building Secret Santa. Sarah's building poker. Yeah. So,
and slots.
And slot machines.
And private payments. And limit orders. It's important. I'll let Falco wrap up here in a moment, but I agree. You can build almost anything. And so this is where, right, if you are a developer listening, or like you've got a favorite protocol somewhere that is slowly, literally dying. Like they don't have a differentiator. Come build with us. This is enough to give pretty much anyone differentiation without having to materially change your core code base in most cases. And if you do, well, we're here to help, right? And so, yeah, this is just this is a new way of thinking about how to build on chain. And if you are building for humans, you're building for agents, you're building for DeFi payments, gambling, consumer, whatever it is, DPIN, come build with us. This is a huge opportunity. So don't miss it.
And we have all the infra for agentic payments and all that, like X42, all that.
Yes.
So we have amazing partners on Scale. So yeah, super
awesome. All right, guys. Well, it was a good deep dive into conditional transactions. I know over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking more and more about how these applications and use cases are going to come together and really bring about a new age for blockchain. It's going to be a fun one. So make sure you guys are following us, tuning in, and staying up to date with everything Scale related. But until then, we will see you guys next week for another episode of Scale School. Goodbye.
All right, class, time to say goodbye. Let's erase the board.